Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Greetings, feely humans. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. And today on the show, we're talking about rats. Rats that are living in my house. Terrifying, disgusting, and I don't know why I'm telling you this, but it's where my brain is at right now. I want to get those rats out of my house. I mean, I understand. We live in the country. We live in the country, and there's lots of trees, and there are going to be rodents and insects. I don't mind insects, but there's something about rats that kind of make me a little uncomfortable. Maybe it's the plague that killed millions of people, so maybe that. So that's where my brain is at. I'm thinking about trying to get rid of these rats any way possible. If you have tips, rat tips, send them to me. That would be great. Okay, today's episode 42, is with comic book writer B.J. Mendelson. We talk about self-help, OCD, and near-death experiences. BJ is a comic book writer, and he wrote a comic book that is part self-help, which is really cool. It's called A National Story of Minor Significance, and it's only 99 cents, digital 99-cent download, and it's worth it. Go check it out. It's awesome. We talk about the time that BJ nearly died from a heart condition and how that experience impacted his life and changed his perception on life. Naturally, those things happen. You hear about those things, but I got to hear that firsthand from BJ, and he's a really eloquent, very empathetic, interesting fella, and I was really grateful to have him on the show. We also talk about, so BJ has also written a book called Social Media is Bullshit, so we talk a lot about technology, capitalism, the sort of self-help in the technological age, including like social media addiction. We talk about how like being skeptical can be helpful for mental health and the mental and physical damage of having a miserable job, suicide rates among tech startups, and all those sorts of things. Lots of things. We talk about lots of things. It's a wide-ranging conversation, very interesting. I hope you enjoy it. One thing before we get to the episode, I do mention that I was going to buy a handful of comics from BJ to give out. I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. I feel bad, but at the time I recorded that with BJ, I wasn't even close to buying a house. But we just bought a house, and things are financially tight, so I'm going to hold off on that. But I still encourage you to go read his comic. You can do a digital download for 99 cents or print on demand for $5. It's worth it. It's good. It's good stuff. So, I love you. Thank you for being part of this empathy journey with me. And I appreciate you. Oh, one thing. This is going to be the longest intro ever. I'm sorry. But I was recently in Chicago, and on my way back to the airport to fly home, I was with my friend Mindy and Ray, and the driver, I forgot her name, and I feel terrible about that, but she had mentioned that she was into mental health, and she was thinking about starting one with her sister. And then Mindy, of course, being the sweetheart that she is, says, "Oh, no one has a mental health podcast." And then we got on that conversation, and it was just a great conversation. Two people, one stranger and me, talking about the importance of being vulnerable and destigmatizing these conversations about mental health. And I gave her one of my mental health or my You, Me, Empathy business cards, and then she made the polite, joyful, heartwarming comment that that basically said, "Oh my goodness, I am going to listen to this podcast while I drive other strangers around Chicago." So my heart was warmed and melted, and I just appreciate you, stranger Lyft driver in Chicago. I love you. Okay, please enjoy this episode. Episode 42 with BJ Mendelson on self-help, OCD, and near-death experiences. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am eager to engage with a new friend on the topic of self-help, among other feely things, with keynote speaker, wrestling aficionado, and author of the new self-help comic book, A National Story of Minor Significance, BJ Mendelson. Hello, BJ.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome. Happy to have you. So for the listeners, we're going to be talking about self-help today. BJ has written a comic book that is maybe not on the surface self-help, but it is a self-help comic book. I'm excited to talk about that and that topic and probably a lot of other things. But as we always do, to start the show, an emotional check-in. How are you doing this week, BJ? How's the day going?
I'm okay today. I've definitely, it was definitely a down week, I think, for the most part, where I get very hard on myself if, I set like these ridiculous goals. I should back up and explain this. And so every day that I'm not like closer to getting that goal, I get antsy and I get pretty hard on myself. And it can be challenging because the goals that I've set are relatively attainable. And so to me, it's just sort of like you wake up in the morning and go, all right, well, crap, the book only sold like 5 copies this week. That is not helpful. And it's very easy to sort of lose an entire day and go down a little bit of a shame spiral. But it's like anything else. You have ups and downs, and today's an up day. And those are days I try to be more productive.
Sure. I relate to that. Is it kind of a matter of, are you making these goals the day before? Is it a matter of like, you're setting too many goals? What is it?
No, I tend to plan out a year. So let me just say, I've got them all on index cards, right? So I look at the index cards when I wake up in the morning and before I go to sleep. So it just says goals for the rest of 2018. I'll read them off real quick because
Sure.
I don't mind. One is the book One Page Speaking Engagement, featuring a new book because I'm trying to get away from talking about social media and trying to get more into talking about privacy and self-help. And so book One Page Self-Help / Privacy Speaking Engagement, date person X. I won't name that person on the show in case that she listens. Finish called Hilarious Fate, Social Media's Bullshit Revisions, and The Outline for Vengeance Nevada, which is my comic book, and stay employed at $5,000 per month and pay off debt. So I have a day job, which is something I encourage all creatives to keep as long as their projects don't make enough income. And so that's where that one comes from. And so those are my goals from now until 2018.
That's
at the end of
amazing.
2018.
And I'm impressed by the organization you have going on there.
Well, you have to be. I think especially in this day and age where I mean, distraction is just a thumb movement away, you know. So
Sure. Yeah, it is.
I think it's important to one, keep it simple. Like there's only those five, and then sort of boil those down to putting them in as simple words as possible to help keep you focused on. And then reading it every day helps you to stay on track and be like, all right, well, this is what I need to work on.
It is simple, as you say, but it is very powerful. I know me personally, what, simply writing a thing. Like I have a day job as well, and writing the few tasks that I have in the morning I use like Post-it notes or something, and having them in front of me, just seeing the words on the piece of paper does sort of, it's a weird, simple motivation technique, I think. And, you're sort of proving it with your goal methodology.
Yeah, you certainly have to write it down. I'm a big advocate of, I've got a red notebook next to my bed, and I've got a couple of notebooks downstairs in the event that, I think of something funny or I get an idea or just want to write it down. I think that it's easier, and at least some of the research out there has shown that we're more likely to remember and process the things that we write down as opposed to, for example, I have the goals on my phone in the notes in the default notes application on the iPhone, but
Right.
I found in writing it down and reviewing it on an index card, it just helps me remember and stay focused on it, and I'm more likely to process it than I am if it's on the phone, where, like I said, distraction's a thumb movement away. So even though I have it on my phone, I've also got porn on my phone. I've got email on my phone. I've got Telegram on my phone. I've got a million different things to distract me and take away from it. So I think writing it down and committing to it is, we're wired to do that. And it's something I think I wish that more of us would embrace.
Yeah, I think the tactile experience of that is a little more closer to the heart. So I totally relate to that. Yeah, this week for me, just last night, in fact, I went and saw the documentary "Won't You Be My Neighbor?"
Cool.
The new Mr. Rogers documentary, and I was a weeping mess throughout. Like within 5 minutes,
Sure.
I was just tears streaming down my face. It is so, like, I'm just brimming this morning with hope, and even though what's going on in the world right now is very grim and despairing, but that man, the beauty that sort of he professed and modeled his life after, and the love that he gave to so many people, and it's just, it makes me want to be a better human, and it's just so inspiring. And I encourage everyone to go out if you can and watch that movie pronto. It's quite good.
Yeah, I've seen the great reviews, and kudos to you for the great segue, because I was going to ask you how you were doing. Then you went right to it, so that was beautiful.
Oh, sure.
I've heard great things about the movie. I haven't seen it. I can make the world suck slightly less with this little trick, which is, even though what we have right now is terrible and also horrifying, I think it's important to note that we've been here before. And each time, at least in American history, that we've had kind of like a dark stain on our soul, we've always bounced back. And when we've bounced back, we've produced really wonderful and terrific things. So, for example, we had in the 1880s and 1890s almost exactly what you see happening now, happening back then. And so it's nothing new. And then out from that came a lot of reforms about corporations and breaking up monopolies, and then also about how we should treat people. And it really reinvigorated the progressive movement. So there definitely seems to be like this ping pong thing that happens in American history. And as bad as things are, I could say with certainty that we will ping pong to a better day not too long from now, and then you'll see some really nice stuff happening. It doesn't make up for what's happening now, but it does show that we're resilient. And that we do learn from our mistakes for the most part, and we do bounce back a little stronger for it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important contextual insight. And you're right. You're totally right. I think as humans, and this is the same, I think I've commented on this, in regards to mental health. It's kind of the same sort of situation. We get in a state where we are down, we are dark, we are dreary, and we think, holy shit, this place, I will never get out of it. This is a unique place. This is a place how, there's woe and there's self-shame, and you feel like you will never get out of it, but we always do, more or less, and we'll be there again. But I think it's easy sometimes to forget about what happened before or what will happen in the future, you know.
Yeah, I mean it's very when you read a lot of news and editorials, you're always seeing like this is the worst thing that's ever happened, and then you realize, all right, well, I'm not detracting from that. I'm not saying that you're wrong in that what's happening is very bad, but there is always this larger context that we don't often think about. I think because it's just not we don't encourage deep thinking
Right.
uh, as a
Or critical
society,
thinking.
our critical thinking for multiple reasons. But yeah, so I think because of that, it's very easy to get caught up in this spiral of this moment right now is really truly terrible, and that's all that it'll ever be. And yeah, I think you're right that that context is often missing, but reintroducing that context whenever we can be very powerful.
Yeah, indeed. Well, let's get into your story a little bit, BJ. I always kind of ask my guests, if you can, just comment or call out maybe a few seminal moments from your childhood, growing up, adolescence that maybe speak to who you are today and maybe inform your sort of overall mental health. I know that's a lot and that's big, but maybe a couple of seminal moments that speak to you.
Well, I think that there's two. The first is that if anyone's read Adult Children of Alcoholics,
Mm,
if you haven't, I definitely recommend it. That's a perfect description of the environment that I came out of growing up, and so it talks about sort of the different roles that the children in the family of an alcoholic individual will take, and one of them was sort of like the clown or the jokester, and so I definitely fell into that slot pretty
mm-hmm,
early on, where I realized I would get favorable responses by making, my family members and my classmates and everyone laugh. So I was definitely the class clown, and that's humor was definitely how I dealt with everything.
mm-hmm.
That's there wasn't anything that was off limits that I wouldn't joke about, just as a way to process things. And so I think really early on that shaped who I am today because I've leaned into that humor in pretty much everything that I do. The comics are funny. Even when I write about serious topics, like the books are serious books, there's a lot of jokes within it because that's just sort of how I process these things. And so that would be the first thing. And then the second thing would be um, almost dying.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best way I could
Yeah,
describe that. So
talk about that.
yeah, so I had a whole bunch of medical things going on with me. I had Lyme disease that was undetected and untreated for a very long time. I had a heart condition that was thought to be very minor, which turned out to be way worse than I think anyone could have possibly thought. But it's one of those things that you wouldn't know unless you opened someone up and got in there. And so I had heart surgery to repair what we thought was a very minor condition, and it turns out it wasn't. And so after they closed me up, I had a heart attack. I flatlined. I was out clinically. I was DOA for a few minutes at least and revived and then rushed back in for a second surgery. And so coming out of that really changes your perception of things. I think it makes you more critical of the things that you bring into your life and the thoughts that kind of cross your mind. And that was sort of the moment coming out of that where I was like, I've always had OCD. I think I'm going to get it treated. I think
Mm-hmm.
before I wouldn't have gone to see a therapist, but now I was like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to read about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and really sort of embrace these things in a way that I didn't before, because now I realize hey, I was 30 and I was at least briefly dead, so I should probably take things a bit more seriously than I was in terms of my health and the way I perceive things.
Yeah, wow. That's I've heard you talk about that experience before, and it's very moving and quite traumatic. I'm curious about what your sort of state of being was before that experience. Like you said, you weren't maybe paying attention to your health, physically or otherwise. Like what did that look like?
Yeah, so that year, so I think it was less than a year from when I got divorced to when I went in for the heart surgery. It's around that. Like it's not a significant amount difference.
Hmm.
So I was already a mess, like just from being separated from my wife and just transitioning to. I have two aging parents, one of which is not in great health, and I have two mentally disabled brothers. So I went from being in Glens Falls, New York, with my wife to moving back in to sort of help take care of things around the house. And so it was a big transition. So there was that, and transitioning away from being married. And then also, when you have OCD and you have a heart condition at the same time, it's very hard to separate what's the heart condition and what's your mental behavior.
Hmm.
And so I really struggled with, being tired all the time and being depressed and not realizing, no, these are serious signs of some mental health issues that need to be addressed, and then chalking those things up and disregarding it to, oh, well, I think these things because my heart's not in good shape. And so I was definitely a messy individual. Even throughout my entire time that I was married, I was a little bit of a messy individual mentally and physically. And so that year was sort of the culmination of all that, where it all sort of came to a head. And then at the same time, I had this experience of suffering congestive heart failure when I was over in Wales, and thinking it was like the flu or something stupid like that. Then coming back and being told, no, you really you need to go right now to see a surgeon because you're like shit out of luck. So it was really that year where I realized how much of a mess things were, and how much more that I really had to examine and take a step back and really examine things in a way that I really hadn't before.
But it sounds like it took a pretty strong physical sort of notification, or sort of wake up call to realize that. Like I relate to
Yeah.
that in a lot of ways. And quick fun side note, I also had a sort of traumatic like wake up call situation in Wales
Oh,
myself.
really?
Yeah, I studied abroad in Wales in college in Swansea at the University of Swansea, South Wales, and that was when I was sort of at a very low period and had anorexia and just was struggling mightily and had a sort of wake up call when the doctor said, "Oh, your heart's gonna stop if you keep going down this road." But so I relate to that in a major way. But so it sounds like you really needed that sort of that wake up call. It's like, oh shit, I need
Oh, yeah.
to.
I mean, I would have died.
Yeah.
I would have died that December of 2013 had I not gotten for the surgery. So without that physical wake up call, I would have just not woken up one day.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate to, I guess, as fortunate as you can be, right, to have these things happen. But I am fortunate that did happen when it did, because otherwise it wouldn't have ended so well.
And when did the OCD come into play?
It's always been there. I think it was there from my childhood. I just didn't ever really knew. Well, first growing up, it was a dysfunctional environment. I was more or less on my own. And so you really didn't have anyone around to tell you, oh no, you suffer from depression and you've got OCD. Like you don't really know what those things are. You just walk around shitty and angry all the time and taking out that anger on people and being more or less an asshole,
Yeah.
for lack of a better description. like I didn't know OCD from anything else. It really wasn't until, uh, yeah, it really wasn't until towards the end of marriage where I was like, I think maybe, and I talked to the heart condition. I think maybe the heart condition was causing these things, and I should probably go and get them looked at, treated, because what had happened was we had a miscarriage, and I didn't respond to it appropriately. I really didn't respond to news of the pregnancy the way that I would have today. Like today, I would have been very thrilled and excited, but I think at the time everything was so cloudy mentally that I just didn't process it the way that a person that was processing things well would have. And so that was really the beginning of that wake up call. But it really took until I got married to a wonderful person, a normal, highly functioning person that I still hold in high regard, and then being thrusted into her family environment of like this healthy nuclear family and this large extended family that all sort of loved and cared for each other, where I started to realize, maybe there's something to this OCD thing, and maybe it's not the heart, it's just me, and I should have this looked at.
Mm. It's interesting. I mean, it makes sense. Or I should rephrase that and say it's an important reminder that we need people in our lives who are going to care for us and remind us of our behavior and be a mirror for us, Yeah,
no, that's certainly true. That was certainly true in my case, because I was always a loner, always fending for myself. Really up until I met and married Amanda, I think that'd be a good description of the way I was mentally. And then you're right, being able, being put into a different environment where you do have, even at the time I think there's a lot of regret that I still have about that marriage in particular, because she loved me, and I think my brain didn't quite function and operate in such a way to process that this person loved you.
Yeah.
And you should appreciate them and treat them better than you probably did. So, but it was having that person that was like, you really should take care of yourself. You should shave your beard and not look like you stumbled out of the woods after like 6 years of going off the grid. You should take care of yourself. Like having that was a really big wake up call and difference maker for me.
And walk me through a little bit like of your state of mind and the clarity that you found after your heart surgery.
Yeah, I think that there was that appreciation for everything that wasn't there before. Because I think before I was like, I'm going to muddle through this until I move to Los Angeles and go and be some big shot writer. So all of this is kind of temporary, and I'm just going to muddle. And after the heart surgery, I was like, yeah, you almost dropped dead there. So maybe you should stop and appreciate. I know it's a cliche, but maybe you should stop and appreciate what you have, and be thankful and happy for having the things that you do in your life, because this might be all you get.
Yeah, I see that. And you started going to therapy at that point?
Yeah, that's not long after the surgery. I started seeing a therapist and learned a lot about cognitive behavioral therapy, and started taking Prozac and reading self-help books. I read pretty much every major self-help book that's come out in the past 100 years. I tried reading the ones that were written in I think it was in the 1880s. The first major one came out it's just called Self-Help. I couldn't make it through it, but I did make a point to read all the big ones of the 20th and 21st century. And, that's when I really took an interest in writing about this stuff and talking to people about it.
What do you think were there some specific holes you were looking to fill in reading those self-help books?
Yeah, I think it was just not, what's interesting is that when you come out of the business and marketing world, mentorship is so important to your success. And I realized I never really had that. I didn't have people, like I said, my dad always worked, and I didn't really get to know my dad until after he retired. And, my mom was around, but not around for one reason or another. And so, I really didn't have that adult figure in my life where I was getting advice from. And so the self-help books kind of filled that role of Okay, well, you're getting your advice from somewhere. It might not always be the best advice. It might sometimes be really bad advice, but at least there's a place to go where you can get the kind of advice that a mentor would provide that you just didn't have prior to the heart surgery.
Gotcha. And were there any books that sort of stood out to you that were some of your favorites?
Yeah, I think How to Win Friends and Influence People is a classic for a reason.
Sure.
I think that you need to take some of the examples that are given with a grain of salt, because Andrew Carnegie, who Dale Carnegie constantly references, was not a self-made man. He was rich because of insider, or what today we would call insider trading. That's where he made his money from. So he's not a good example of like this person that pulled himself up by their bootstraps, which is how he's portrayed in How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think the Tony Robbins books are good. I think that those are the trick to those books are that he's not really saying anything new. He's just really synthesized a lot of what had been said in such a way that I think is actionable, which was probably lacking from some of the previous books that were put out there. The Richest Man in Babylon. And there's another one that's also, there's three of them before World War II. There's How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Richest Man in Babylon, and Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which I think are the sort of the big three that I gravitate towards and lean on. But there's been other ones, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which is recent, and the Jen Sincaro book, which is You Are a Badass, which is also very good and wonderfully written, that I've really leaned on in recent years.
Nice. And I'm curious of the sort of crossover of the idea of self-help and self-care with the world of social media. I know like you're sort of, as you said at the top, you're maybe going a little away from focusing on social media, but I'm curious just to get your 2 cents on like how do we reconcile those two things in a way that is healthy and maybe balanced, or maybe I'm leading the witness there, but do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I always tell people that marketing books are basically self-help books for people with money, because most marketing authors are just regurgitating what the self-help authors are saying. And the funny thing is most of the self-help authors are regurgitating what like Abraham Lincoln and Emerson said, and they were really regurgitating what you could read in the Bible, which is why I always tell people I'm an atheist that loves Jesus.
Yeah,
for that reason. So there's a couple things there. Like, so the way that we approach social media marketing is the same way that you would approach being a healthy person that's taking advantage of a lot of the self-help advice, because a lot of the self-help advice is about defining who you are as a person and setting limits, and then writing down those goals and working to achieve them. And the social media profiles, if done correctly, could help you project that to the world, which I think is great. I don't have any problem with that. I think that we should always strive to be better. And if you have a social media profile, regardless of what platform it's on, where you talk about the environment or talk about, I have 6 cats, they're all rescues. And so, if you have a social media presence that's about cat rescue and telling people these little tips and tricks that you learned, I think that's great. So there's certainly the positive of it. The negative of it is a lot of what you might think, where there's been studies to show that rampant social media use can lead to depression. It leads to a skewed perception of reality because you can curate your presence so much, and we all do. It's very easy to look at people's Instagram profiles and feel like, wow, look at how great that person's life is because it's so glamorous, and look at all the hot guys and beautiful women that they're associating themselves with, and all the adventures they go on. It's very easy, if you're like me, to look at those profiles and start to feel really bad about yourself. I definitely suffer from that. I know a lot of people do, if the research is correct. And so I think it's important to not, I'm not saying don't use social media. I've always been very clear that these things are tools. They're like anything else that's out there. You get what you put into them. So it's not that I don't think people shouldn't use them, but I think it's certainly true that you should set limits. For example, I have in the morning what I call Twitter time. I've got that hour from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And the reason why I picked 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. is that I found that is when I'm more likely to get retweets and responses.
Okay.
And so I've set aside that hour to just play around on Twitter, and that's my time to go through. I follow a crap ton of people, and that's my time to get to know them and interact with them and say funny things and hopefully have them laugh at those funny things. And after that hour, that's really all I spend on Twitter, unless I have like a marketing reason to be there. For example, I might be following different comic news websites and following the people who follow those comic news websites in the hopes that I can turn them and make them into fans. And so if there's like a logical marketing reason to be there, I'm there. But outside that hour, that's it. Like that's my social media time for the day, and I make it a point to stop using social media in all different forms after 9 p.m. Because the blue light on your phone keeps you awake, and so if you heavily use social media or really your phone before bed, you have trouble sleeping. And so I try to set like these hard limits of, Twitter time is in the morning from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then unless I'm doing something for work, I don't really use social media unless something blows up and I need to respond to it. And whatever, regardless, I don't use it after 9 p.m. And so I think that's important in terms of people's social media use to kind of set those limits and rules.
Yeah.
And then if you have those things, then it's great. And then you can kind of use it stress free. Like I use Twitter completely stress free, and Instagram also during that time where I don't have to worry about wasting time because that time is specifically dedicated to using those platforms and services.
Right. And I think that's really well said and important. I think where the stress comes in is some of the things that you were intimating and have talked about openly is like the promise of reach, right? How, the promise of what we can do with our, ads on Facebook or Instagram, or the promise of what a certain number of followers will sort of give us in terms of self-esteem or these things that I think are dangerous and bad for our mental health. I always my perspective on social media is that it's done great things for me in terms of like meeting amazing humans that I want to like genuinely connect with. And that's sort of the primary thing. And I try not to, even though I succumb to it at times, try not to get into the, oh, I have this many followers, or, oh, I tweeted this great thing and no one has liked it. I want to kill myself. Like nothing, those thoughts happen from time to time because I'm human, but sure. I try to remind myself that it's about connection, making real connections, and that's why we're here after all on this pale blue dot.
Exactly, and I'm the same way. Like if I write a joke that I think is hilarious, there was one last night. I don't know when this will air, but I was going off about. So I'm a big pro wrestling fan, and there's a group in Impact Wrestling called LAX, and so LAX's character is essentially they're a street gang.
Okay.
And so so I was like, if you apply some logic to this, it falls apart really fast because it's like, all right, so they're street gang members that just so happen to moonlight as professional wrestlers, and so that's
premise
fine.
is very silly.
Yeah, the premise is ridiculous, and then what's even more ridiculous is that lately they've really leaned into like these backstage vignettes of, I gave you New York and your job was to take care of, like, it's very heavy, like, we are gang, we are doing illicit gang things, and so I went off on this whole thing about, like if they're gonna feud with someone in the ring, you figure it would be the cops, and so I started listing like different professional wrestling police officers because there's been a bunch of them. There's been like Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker in WCW, and there was the Big Boss Man who, was a major character for a long time. And I was like, this is who they should feud with, and I thought that was hilarious. And I looked, and like no one was laughing at it. So I definitely have those thoughts of that's hilarious. Why isn't anyone laughing? I suck. I think I should kill myself because it spirals out of control pretty quickly. but at the same time, what the saving grace and what I think everyone needs to know is that not everyone sees what you put out there
Right.
because of the algorithms. And I think that is the healthiest thing to tell people. So if you ever tweet or post something on a platform and no one responds to it, it's not you. It's the platform. It's the time that you post it. It's sometimes the platform looks to see how quickly people respond to these things. And so if you, like, for example, link out to your website, the platform punishes you. And that's true across all of them. They do not want you linking to your stuff, which is why you might have seen people posting a comment and then in the reply to the comment, they'll have a link.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. You see that a lot on Facebook, and I've seen it increasingly on Twitter. And the reason why is because if you post something that's got a link, people are not likely to see it. And so what I'm trying to get at is that, we all do it. We all beat ourselves up over these notification systems because these notification systems have been programmed essentially to work the same way that drugs work. So it's not us. It's Instagram. It tells you a certain time of day. Like if it knows that you log in at 6 o'clock, that's when it's going to tell you that you have all these notifications.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to tell you that you have different notifications throughout the day, and it's going to hit you when it knows you're more likely to use the service and spend a lot of time with it. And so it's important to know that you may post something and not see it for no fault of your own, but because of the way that Twitter's or Facebook system works.
Yeah. And I think there's value in just reminding yourself that you are funny and the fact that you can laugh at your own joke like that. There's value in that too.
Yeah. I think that we come from a society, I should back up. We come from a species of herd animals. We as people have a tendency to go along and conform with the larger group for that reason. So it's very easy to, if you laugh at something, but someone tells you not to laugh at your own jokes, that's bullshit. Like if you laugh at your own jokes, I think that's a sign of a funny joke, because clearly it's touched on something that you find humorous. But we're very quick as a species to like cut people down and be like, don't laugh at your own jokes. That's not good. Don't stick your head up from the group. Who are you trying to stand up and be noticed? You should just go with the flow. And so there's a lot of that. And so I think you're right that, if it made you laugh, there is a lot of value in that. And I think that we need to back off from this philosophy of cutting people down for presenting jokes and then be like, that's not funny because that's not mainstream, or that's not funny because other people didn't laugh. And if it makes you laugh, there's a lot of value in it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we need to sort of abstain from cutting people down in general, like across the board. Right. I think there's a lot of that. And it's sort of, that sort of segues into this question we just got on Twitter. I posted before we started recording from @EmersonDameron on Twitter. He asks, how can cynicism and skepticism help one better manage one's mental health?
Well, I saw that, and I think that I don't believe that being a skeptic or being a cynic is mutually exclusive with being miserable.
Right.
I think that you can be cynical and still have a really positive and healthy outlook on things. I get that a lot. Like I get a lot of like, oh, you wrote a book called Social Media is Bullshit and you're a cynic. And it's sort of like, no, I'm actually quite the opposite. Post heart surgery anyway, have a very positive outlook on life and things. And so I think that being skeptical and cynical can really help you in terms of managing your mental health. I think, for example, if you have OCD, like I do, when you go through CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the things they teach you is to be cynical of the thoughts that you have. Like that's one of the things they tell you is, if you have a thought that travels through your mind. So, for example, I was looking at this picture of this gentleman, and I was like, wow, that person's really good looking. I could never date that person. Like that person is like completely out of my league. That's an example of a thought that CBT would tell you to stop and examine, and tell you to say, okay, well, why do I have that thought, and where does that thought come from, and where does it originate? So that's an example of taking cynicism and skepticism and applying it to mental health. At least that's something I do every day of examining the thoughts that go through your head and trying to figure out where they're coming from to help put a stop to them.
That seems more like a curiosity and less of a cynicism. Like my maybe perspective
Sure.
on the answer would be skepticism, like across the board, like I think has a healthy place in our mental health because what you're talking about, exactly what you're talking about. Like we need to be curious about these things. They're very complex. And, we each have our own very unique experiences with our mental health and our depression and our anxieties. And the cynicism side of things, like, I don't know, maybe I'm misusing the definition, but it seems like it has a bit more of a sort of a negative tact than
We've certainly stapled a negative implication to it, but I think it's important. I mean, if you look at the basis for Stoicism, right? I mean, that's all about being a cynic.
Mm.
Like that's the entire foundation of that philosophy. So I don't have that negative connotation with the idea of cynicism, and I kind of like having that skeptic filter that everything should run through because we do. For example, we live in a society that prides ourselves on how much work you did. And if you didn't do a lot of work today, then therefore you're lazy, right? So,
it's the worst.
but I'm convinced that you only really have maybe, and I'm not alone in this. There's a lot of people that have studied, like psychology that have come out in favor of this, that you really only have 4 hours of mental bandwidth, for lack of a better description,
right,
that you can apply to anything over the course of a given day. So what I always tell people is, don't tell me that all because I don't work 9 to 5, I only work 4 hours a day, that I'm lazy, because I truly believe that 1 hour of high quality productive time in most cases can be more effective than sitting around in an office all day, where I did maybe 30 minutes worth of work.
Right.
And so we have that philosophy of you got to work yourself to death, basically. And so I think it's important to have that cynicism of, well, no, that's not the natural state of things. That really came out of the early 20th century in factory work and trying to make people productive. And then we had this wave of management consultants, which were all about squeezing productivity out of people and paying them less so we can pay the people on the top more. And so, that I think it's important to have that skepticism of things like that and really question why we have this 9 to 5 workday in the first place, and why we had this great book that just came out called Bullshit Jobs, and it explores this. And he talks a lot about why we have this whole system of working 9 to 5, and that you got to work yourself to death, and that you have to be available, and if you don't, you're lazy and you're not working hard enough. And we always hear that like with motivational gurus, and we hear that with marketing gurus, who again I believe are really the same, cut from the same cloth, where they're always telling you got to work hard, and that's what's going to make your dreams come true. And I tell people it's actually not true. It's not about working hard; it's about working smart, and then that comes from being a cynic. It's from putting everything through this filter and saying, all right, if I got 4 hours of productivity in me, like, what's the one thing I can do today to make myself better? Or what's the one thing I can do today that's going to move the needle on selling this comic book? And so I think cynicism really is rooted in all that. And I really don't want to separate it from mental health because of that negative connotation.
Gotcha. No, I see that. And I think that is well said. I think that, so it's really about curiosity, questioning, and skepticism, and then also, not sort of simply going along with the status quo and questioning why is that a thing? And I think that is a great lesson for any, the sort of mental health conversation at large, in the sense that, there's stigma, right? And that stigma exists because of status quo, because of fear, because of ignorance, because of lack of curiosity and questioning and skepticism. And so I think,
We've definitely, I think people as a whole, they know these things. Sometimes they don't. But the big thing, let me back up. There's two things. The first is that the people of the money shape perception because they have all the influence. And so we've allowed, this isn't meant to be a liberal or a conservative argument at all. So don't take this politically. But throughout American history, as wealth has been concentrated with the top 1%. They have been able to sort of shape reality for us. And that reality is all about squeezing productivity out of us in order to make them more money, for better or worse. And so, again, that is not a political argument. That's just sort of how it's been since the 1890s in the United States. And so a lot of us kind of know this. And that's why you've seen movements like Occupy, and you've seen the groundswell for people like both Trump and Sanders. Again, regardless of what happened after Trump was elected, a big reason why people voted for him was anti-status quo. It was anti being, again, I am not justifying anything that he's done, but I think it's important to understand that reality is shaped by people with money, and people with money have told us to work harder and faster and better. And if you're not working, there's something wrong with you. And it's very easy for us to fall into that trap of believing that, because that's our reality has been written for us. And then the second part, which is really complicated things, is that I saw this with social media as bullshit. I saw this where when people, so I was at like this huge marketing conference, and I came out on stage, and there's about 1,000 people in the group. They're about to watch me speak, and they're all like marketing executives with mobile and P&G and some of the world's largest corporations. And the second the person that introduced me said the title of the book, Social Media is Bullshit, they all laughed. And the reason why they laughed is they knew it. Like, they know that it's true.
Right.
And the thing I got time and time again after I give a presentation or talk about the book somewhere is, I know this stuff is bullshit, but there's nothing I can do about it. So I'll give you one quick example. I was at this conference for government. It's actually the presentation. It's on my website. If you go to bjmendelson.com and click on the speaking page, there's a full Social Media is Bullshit presentation. And at that presentation, there was someone that works in the Pentagon. And she was like, look, I work for a branch of the military in the recruiting department. I know that social media is bullshit. I know that our social media efforts do not work in terms of recruiting people for this specific branch. Unfortunately, the people above me, again, the people of money, the people of influence, love social media. They believe that it works. And so my job is basically bullshit. My job is to spend a lot of money on social media that I know is not going to work, but because there's a belief that it works, we're doing it anyway. And so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of just going along with the system because it's going to pay my bills. And so we don't want to rock the boat, and we don't want to say, hey, this working 9 to 5 is bullshit. It really should be like 8 to 12. And the rest of the time should be spent with us exploring and playing and creating music and having discussions. And, it's no secret that we have, people always joke about how shitty the music industry is and how bad music has gotten from the 1960s to today. And there's actually a really practical economic reason for that. And the reason why is that we're working everyone to death, and we're taking these shitty jobs to pay our bills, and we don't. It's very difficult today to be a musician, and it's very difficult today to be a creative because we've allowed the economic model to be destroyed by tech companies and large corporations. And so the reason why you don't hear good music anymore is because those people are working at Walmart as their second job, after working a full day shift because they have to pay the bills. And all of this ties back to mental health. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm getting too far off the,
no worries.
I mean, all of this ties back to mental health, because what we found is that if you read Bullshit Jobs, he talks a lot about like the damage of the soul and psychic damage that's done from having these bullshit jobs. That's done from, if you work in a mental institution and all you really do is push buttons at your desktop and pretend to be busy, that kills your mental health. We've seen it time and time again where you would think people would be happy just to make money, but what happens is they're miserable.
Right.
And that really has created some of the situations that we have here in the United States where we don't talk about mental health. Instead, we create more and more problems around it.
Yeah, I've been there. I it's kind of heartbreaking. Like, I've had many jobs in my day, and my current job is very, we all work remote, and it's sort of a project basis, and I can kind of work when I want, and it's the best. It's amazing. But I've had jobs where I have been miserable, and there has been this pressure to work 9 to 5, but not only work 9 to 5, like be seen after hours, because
That's right.
there's this idea that if you're seen after hours, you're really working hard and therefore valued. And I think exactly what you're talking about. That is very damaging. And it's why, like, and makes sense that people are in that situation, because that myth is propagated.
What's amazing to me is, we never talk about the suicide rate among tech startups.
Yeah.
It's especially among we never talk about it. We always praise the tech founders because they work. They have, Facebook is known for having lockdowns where you can't leave the campus for 24 hours, and everyone is obligated to sit there and grind out code or do whatever it is that Facebook pretends that it's doing to justify its non-existent business model. And so, in the tech industry, we have that where it's not 9 to 5. In Chicago, when I worked with a lot of tech startups, a lot of the people would make fun of the guys that went home at 5 o'clock, because to them it was like, what are you doing? I'm going to be here until midnight, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to grind away and I'm going to code.
Right.
And if you leave at 5 p.m., you're weak. And that perception, unfortunately, is trickled out throughout a lot of, especially around a lot of white collar jobs, where you're right, you do have to work past 5 o'clock because the boss expects you to, or you can't leave until the boss does, even though the boss knows that you're doing bullshit. Like, the boss knows that you're not doing anything.
Yeah,
you just can't go home until they do. And so for that reason, we have things like in the tech industry a really high suicide rate, where you're just grinding these kids that are coming out of college or who are dropped out of college, where you're basically just grinding them to death, and we just don't stop and think about the ramifications of this work thing.
It's very sad. I have a friend who recently published a piece on Medium called Feel Good Inc., and it's really about the culture of mindfulness and how companies have sort of tried to maybe combat some of what we're talking about, but in ways that are a little bit maybe disingenuous and still sort of part of the corporate machine.
That was a great piece. That was one of those ones I came across and really enjoyed. That's sort of like the people who, I think his name is Tristan Harris, where he was on 60 Minutes talking about the evil of Facebook and how it's designed to hijack your brain. And the reason why he knows this is because he was one of the people that helped design it. And so it really bothers me that we've gotten to this point of, he now realized the tide has turned against tech, and the way to make money is to do like these anti-tech things and say, wow, Facebook is bad for your brain and it's hijacking you. And now he's out as a speaker getting paid for something that he helped design in the first place. And to me, I can't help but think, if it's that evil and that bad, then you shouldn't have done it. I really do believe that. I know people will tell you they're just doing their job, and maybe he's sorry for what he did, and I accept that. I'm not disputing that either, but I can't help but shake the thought of it. There's a lot of disingenuous. There's the mindfulness movement. There's the timeliness movement. There's people who are obsessed with time spent. Yeah. There's people that are talking about time spent on Instagram, time spent on Facebook, and to me, it's a little like they've created a problem and they're now trying to cash in with the solution. And I feel that way with mindfulness also, where I feel you're telling people to meditate that don't necessarily need to meditate. I think meditation's great. I am a big believer in it. I try to do it every day. But I also don't think that one size fits all is the way to approach mindfulness. Mm-hmm. I think there's a great book called, I think it's 10% Happier.
Sure. Yeah.
By Dan Harris, where he talked about sitting in with these gurus and then his own mental health, and he talks about he found that sitting and meditating was not for him. It just wasn't something that was productive, and yet we have like these apps that are selling these monthly subscriptions, and they're like, you need to download the creativity pack for $19.99 a month, and you need to meditate. And it's sort of like, these things can be good, but it doesn't work for everybody. And so, I do have a problem with, this capitalistic approach to mindfulness and meditation that we're seeing.
Yeah. Well, and then the sort of insidious part of that is that some of these bigger companies are creating these like meditation rooms or something, and like within the office,
That's right.
thereby
Yeah.
like, oh, we're just going to keep you here longer. It's very troubling to me.
Yeah, like the joke I tell people is if you go to Midway Airport has a yoga studio
Mm.
that you can access. But the odds are good if you're flying out of Midway, you're flying out on Southwest, and you're flying for business. So to me, it's sort of like I would rather meditate in an environment that calms me, and an airport is not one of them. Like no matter how nice the studio is, and I have used it, it's hard for me to sort of unwind in that environment because I know that I'm going to get on a plane, which is stressful enough, but I'm also going to fly somewhere that's going to really stress me out. Like I'm going to fly to Omaha and work with crazy people, which is a true story. And so, yeah, it's true that you see a lot of environments, especially with the tech companies, where they're like, "Look at how good our food is, and look at how good our daycare plan is, and isn't it wonderful? You can drop your kid off and not have to see them until like midnight." Yeah, so there's a lot of that going on where it looks good, but it's really just keeping you trapped to squeeze productivity. And by the way, salaries are not going up at those tech companies. They are more likely to drop the bottom 20% in the name of efficiency. So not only are they there trapping you with all this food and yoga rooms and other amenities, but they're going to grind you to death essentially and squeeze you out, and then just hire the next kid. Like to them, they might talk a good game about having these yoga studios on campus. I know Google's got them, but what they don't talk about is that you really have maybe a 2-year lifespan at Google until they hire the next 18-year-old that's going to work for less, that they're not going to have to pay as much until they've squeezed everything out of you that they can.
Yeah. Well, like I'm curious, like you speak very well and passionately on these topics. Like, is that your aim? Is it in terms of like what you're creating, what you're speaking about, some of this stuff, this culture stuff, this corporate culture stuff?
Yeah, I think what I discovered so I wrote another book about privacy, and I didn't set out to write a sequel or follow up to Social Media is Bullshit. I just thought I was going to write about something that was in the same space but kind of standalone. And what happened was I had a realization that all of the books that I'm working on tie together. All the comic books that I work on tie together. Like I'm building towards this big thesis, and I have a book title. I'm going to call it "Don't Be Evil," and
Okay.
some of that's mocking Google because for a long time that was their unofficial mission statement. They moved away from that over the years, but that was for a long time the quote unquote secret mission statement that everyone sort of knew about. And I found that I do think that I'm moving in that direction of it's not just tech. Like the things that I'm talking about are things that we see them in blue collar jobs for sure, but blue collar jobs can be more meaningful and more productive. And people that have blue collar jobs are more happier because they feel like what they're doing is productive and helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you work at a grocery store and you're bagging groceries, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's the best job in the world because I've bagged groceries. It is not the best job in the world. But when you have a sweet old lady coming through your line and you're bagging groceries for her, you feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Like you have done something for her that she's just not able to do for herself. And so really what we're seeing is this phenomenon with white collar jobs, these bullshit jobs, as the book says, where everything I've talked about, where we're doing evil, we're grinding people to death in the name of efficiency, and the world is shaped by people who have money and control the wealth, and that reality is not good. It's not healthy. It's very detrimental to our mental health. These are all things that I've been thinking about for a long time now that I think I'm going to put in a book called Don't Be Evil. And I think that, I'm really moving in this direction where I'm giving myself away for free.
Uh-huh.
My comics are only $1. Starting next week, every comic that I have on Comixology is only $1. I am giving away the first edition of Social Media is Bullshit for free, and I'm putting out the revised edition on my site. I make my money through speaking, so yes, absolutely. Like that's my career is as a speaker. I only charge $8,000, which sounds like a lot, but you have to put that in the same continuum as a Gary Vaynerchuk or Malcolm Gladwell, who charge like $200,000 or at least the minimum of 90,000 per presentation. So I'm moving in this direction where I don't get paid a lot per presentation. I just want to do a lot of them because I know I can do a lot of good. And so that seems to be where I'm heading, where I'm giving away these books and comics for as close to free as I can, and doing the presentations as my way of coming out and speaking about this and trying to help affect change. Because again, I'm an amateur historian, and much of American history has been shaped by people traveling the country and giving presentations. That's how we used to spread ideas, and that's still how we spread ideas. And I think if I can get on the road and do that, then I think I'm doing my part to make this place a little bit better.
I love that analogy, the oratory of our sort of ancestors. That's a beautiful thing. I love that.
Thank you. I got it from Abraham Lincoln. I mean, that's, you got to remember, up until I think the 1910s, maybe a little earlier, you could not, if you were running for president, you could not say, I am running for president and do a campaign. You could do speeches and talk about the issues that mattered, but in order to run for president, people had to go out and stump for you. And that's sort of how you got on the ballot. Was, Lincoln didn't do the presentations. The people that liked Lincoln and wanted him to be elected were the ones out there, and how they got people to rally behind Lincoln was public presentations. And so I really took to that. I really found that was something that it still works to this day. It's something that's rooted in if you go all the way back to the beginning of the United States, at least the beginning where white people are concerned, right? Because people were here before us. But if you go to the very beginning with the Puritans, again, it was very religious. They were going around talking about their conception of God and what you had to do to be a good person, and the city on the hill, and how they delivered that was through presentation. So it's something that's really grounded in American culture that I just really embraced.
Nice. I love that. Let's talk about your comic book, A National Story of Minor Significance, which is a self-help comic. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I felt that if I was just to write another self-help book, it would get lost in the shuffle, and it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be unique. And so, it's something that would be worth spending money on. So I realized, okay, if I'm going to do this, then, and if I'm going to ask you to buy it for $1, then it should be something worth spending your hard-earned money on. And so I thought that it would be best to do a self-help book in the form of comic. How did that come about? Like, are you friends with comic creators, artists? Like, how did that sort of origin story happen? Well, comics is my life. It's something that I've been doing since 2002, where I've been putting out like crappy web comics for a really long time. Vengeance Nevada is the first comic that I actually went and put out on sale for people to buy, and that was this past November that I finally bit the bullet on that. But since 2002, when I was 18, 19 years old, I really took the comics. I found that was a great medium to really convey things, especially to people my age and younger. I just turned 35, and I found that we're definitely more visual than previous generations.
Sure.
And so I felt that this was the way to do a self-help. But I always ask myself, if you're going to do something, would people use it in the 22nd century? Again, because I'm an amateur historian, I look at what's managed the test of time. And so self-help has managed the test of time, where it started in the 1880s and it's still a genre that we have to this day. So that hasn't changed, but what's changed is the way that we consume information. And so I was like, okay, I know these artists, so I do work with other writers. I think if I were to have a product in the 22nd century, it would be a visual self-help book. And so that, I think a comic book fills that need. And so that's really what pushed me in that direction.
I love that. And can you give me like a little synopsis of what the comic's about?
Yeah. So the title of the book is A National Story of Minor Significance, and I'm sort of using what's happened in my life to impart different life lessons. So the first issue that's out deals a lot with my OCD and what I've done to manage it and the way that it manifests in my head. So we actually go inside my head for a big part of the issue, and we see these different rooms that are filled with boxes of things that I'm holding on to from like high school, of shitty things people said to me that that I haven't let go of, and we literally set fire to them in the book. And so
Nice.
it's sort of this visual metaphor of, this is the way that you let go of these things, like to take an inventory of what's in your mind and why it's there, and if you don't have it, to let it go. And so that's really what's the first issue is about. Each issue kind of takes a different turn. Like it's not very explicit. I think that I'll explicitly come out and say, I have OCD, and these are the things that I've done to solve it, and these are things I tell myself, but it's not designed in such a way that it's preachy or prescriptive. Like it's the visual metaphor that we are literally setting fire to these things that are weighing me down in my head, and that you can do that as well, is really the strength of the comic and what each issue tries to do.
Nice. Yeah, I read the first couple pages. I was really into it. The art's great. It's funny. I'm a big comic book nerd myself and have been since childhood. So is it only digital at this point, or can I pick it up at my local comic shop?
So it's not out at your comic shops yet, and the reason why is there's a monopoly in terms of how comics are distributed to local comic book stores. The company is called Diamond.
Sure.
And you have to go through this whole song and dance to first get into Diamond's catalog, to even see if people even want your book. So before you can even approach like local stores, there's this whole thing you got to do. And so there is a print edition. If people want the book in print, they can write to me. They can email me. I will print a copy just for them and email and mail it to them. All you got to do is pay for the shipping and handling and the printing, and I will send it to you. So I have a batch of them that are sitting here now, and so that's sort of what I'm doing. Like if you prefer it in print, like I do, I prefer comics in print.
Me too.
Yeah, it's only digital because I don't want to go through the whole process of working with Diamond. I rather just put the book out. And so if you want the print copy, all you got to do is email me and buy it from me directly, and I'll autograph it and send it to you. Nice.
Yeah, no, I want to buy a handful to give out to listeners.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What I'm curious, because we both read comics. What are you reading right now? What comics are you reading right now?
I'm reading it a lot, so it's I'll just tell you what I read like this past week.
Sure.
Just because that's easier. So I'm reading Avengers and Justice League. Avengers #3 came out this week. Dan Slott is now writing Iron Man.
Oh, he's a great writer.
Yeah, that first issue came out this week. It's wonderful. It will make you care about characters that I have never cared about, like Jocasta, who up until recently can best be described as Lady Ultron.
Okay.
But in the span of like 20 pages, she now has a character and purpose, and she's wonderful. And I really, really found that like she's going to be the breakout star of that book. So it's wild. Like he has a whole thing with Fing Fang Foom in it. So that's the book that I tell people to read. Bendis Man of Steel. I've read. Yeah. I'm enjoying that. Mark Waid, I'm a big fan of, is now writing Doctor Strange. In Doctor Strange #2, he introduced the word Earthbilly into the lexicon, which is exactly as it sounds. Like the aliens in the Marvel universe see the Earthlings as hillbillies.
Wow, that's a great portmanteau.
Yeah, so they call us Earthbillies, and that alone makes the comic worth buying and subscribing to. I can't remember what the other one was that I read, but so I read a lot of Marvel and DC. I do try to pick up Image and Boom and Dark Horse books when I can. I found that most of those books work for me, but a lot of them don't, and so I'm a little gun shy sometimes to pick up a new book from Image, for example, unless a lot of people tell me to go and read it. Yeah. So Paper Girls is a good example of that, or Saga is a good example, or my favorite, if you haven't read it, is Revival by Tim Seeley.
Yeah, I'm reading that right now.
That is my favorite Image book of the past decade. And I wouldn't have got into it if I had not heard about it from Word Balloon. And so that's sort of what I'm reading right now.
Nice. Have you read Mr. Miracle?
Yes. So Tom King is. I was a big fan of his run on Vision, and so I haven't picked up his Batman at all because I'm waiting for it to come out as collected editions.
Yeah.
Just because that's always how I've read Batman. But yes, Mr. Miracle has been wonderful. I think it, especially for someone like me who who's suffered through depression and OCD. I found I latched onto that book in a way I didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really an interesting discussion that he's having using superheroes, and I think he's going to build on that now. There's something coming out that he's working on where it's going to be like a big crossover event where it's heroes dealing with mental trauma, and yeah, I can't say enough good things about him and his work on Mr. Miracle.
Yeah, my wife is a huge fan. I think she's even teaching it in her college class.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I read recently Four Kids Walk Into a Bank.
How is that?
It's really good, by Matthew Rosenberg. It's basically about these sort of delinquent kids who have some parents in their lives who aren't very attentive or quality at all, and they decide to rob a bank for various reasons, and it's very funny, and the writing is very real and hilarious, but I love the art, especially the way the panel structure is very unique. I like it a lot.
Is he the same Matthew that's writing The Punisher?
That is a good question. I don't know.
Because I believe that there's a Rosenberg, like I'm Jewish, so I definitely tend to fixate on certain last names.
Sure.
And I saw Rosenberg and I was like, oh, one of us, or maybe one of us. Yeah, but his work on Punisher has been very good, so I think I should go and check that out.
The other one I was just going to mention, and I like a lot because I like really dark things, is Nailbiter.
Oh yes, I've heard good things about that. I haven't had a chance to pick that one up yet, but I've heard good things.
It's good and deeply disturbing, and some of the imagery in there is quite gruesome. But the mystery of it all, and it's basically about serial killers, and it's like I said, it's very dark, but it's well done. I like it.
Nice. I tend to gravitate towards that stuff. I really like Mindhunter.
Oh yeah.
So I will probably pick it up as well. I'm probably gonna, as soon as we're done chatting, I will probably buy both of them on Comixology.
Nice. Well, let's start wrapping up the show and talk about our empathy heroes. So
yeah.
This is someone in our lives we know personally, or a fictional character, or someone in the past, like Mr. Rogers is a good example, that are sort of good arbiters of empathy. Do you wanna go first and mention your empathy hero?
Yeah, so I know when anyone mentions Adam Sandler, we tend to cringe. It's like you don't usually get a positive response, but he's done some good films, and one of them was Rain Over Me.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen it, but for people who haven't, okay, it's a wonderful film. He essentially he loses his family on September 11th, and so he sort of becomes like this reclusive figure. And there's this argument about like whether or not he can take care of himself, and Don Cheadle plays his best friend. And Sandler's character goes back and forth between being sort of calm and then sort of unhinged. And the reason why it's called Rain Over Me is that the song kind of calms him down and brings him back to a happy state. But Don Cheadle's performance, like to me, is sort of like the definition of empathy. Like he is so cool and so calm, and he just, even in the most ridiculous situations that he finds himself in that film, he has a lot of compassion for Sandler's character. He has a lot of love for that character. That's an old movie at this point. Like that's going back, but I still remember it, and I found that if you really like something, you will remember it. And it's even better when you remember it fondly. And I think that Don Cheadle in that role, for me, is definitely an empathy hero.
Nice. Yeah, I need to check that out. I remember when it came out, and it registering maybe in my brain as like, oh, it's another, or not another. It's one of the sort of more serious roles for Adam Sandler, and it just, kind of came and went. But now I'm going to give that a go and give that a watch.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's highly recommended.
Awesome. Well, my empathy hero this week is my friend Elizabeth Lame, who is a guest of the show. As of this recording, her episode is not out yet, but it will be out. So go back and listen to that episode. I bring her up because she is very active whenever, what's happening right now in our world and the sort of children of immigrants and that horror. Like, she's always like inspiring people to just take action and reach out and do good. And it's a good sort of kick in the pants sometimes I need. And so my friend Elizabeth Lame is my empathy hero this week. I call her my friend, even though like we've only really done Skype sessions before. But I'm just going to call her my friend.
I think that counts. In the 21st century, that is how we communicate with each other. So I think that definitely counts.
Oh, thank you for validating that. BJ, before we go and close this out, where can our listeners connect with you and also read your comics? I'll make sure to put all of those links in the show notes. So go.
Yeah, like I said, everything is on bjmendelson.com. The comics are only $1. They will never be more than that. If you want to see my different books and stuff, all you got to do is go there. In fact, I'm giving away free copies of Social Media is Bullshit as a PDF. So a lot of people don't realize this. Like, if you go to the contact page on my site, I have my actual phone number.
I saw that.
Yeah, that is my actual phone number. I won't answer because I'm afraid of strangers. But it's more social anxiety, to be honest with you. It's more my anxiety.
But also stranger danger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and for the most part, people have been good. It says text me. It says flat out, like, you can text me, and I will text you back. And that's how I communicate with the people who buy my stuff. Is I mostly just text with them. I don't rely on. We talked about the algorithms and how people may not necessarily see your brilliant, tweets about a Latin American street gang who also acts as professional wrestlers. So for that reason, I rely on texting. So people can text me at 646-331-8341. And if you text me the word sheetrock, and the word is spelled exactly as it sounds, sheetrock, I will send you a free PDF copy of Social Media is Bullshit that you can pass on, post, share with anyone you like. And again, all my stuff is over on bjmendelson.com, including some past presentations and other things you can check out.
Awesome. Well, BJ, I really appreciate you being here and chatting with me on You Me Empathy.
No, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for your patience for me to get up and relocate the cat a couple of minutes ago. So thank you for that. And I really hope that this was helpful for people that are listening.
Oh, it absolutely is. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here. We're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring, pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You Me Empathy.